Miami Condo Mondays is a live podcast on the first workday of the week at 4 p.m. South Florida time. The program features former journalist and current Wall Street consultant Peter Zalewski of the Miami Condo Investing Club and former lender and veteran condo broker Jenny Huertas of CBRealty.com. Recorded weekly in greater downtown Miami, this one-hour discussion will provide a refreshing and sometimes controversial perspective on the state of the South Florida condo market from a pair of seasoned real estate professionals who do not always agree. The program won't tell you what to think about the South Florida condo market, but will give you something to think about before buying, selling, taking listings, or financing units. This podcast is not authorized by the Miami real estate industry and will quite possibly annoy many of its figureheads. Welcome to this week's episode of Miami Condo Mondays, broadcast live on the Substack account of Peter Zalewski.
Happy Monday. If it's Monday, it means it's time for Miami Condo Mondays. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm a condo consultant. I'm also the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. It is summer. It's actually hurricane season. We're in day 2 of hurricane season, and we got a perfect welcome. It's pissing down rain in South Florida. So if you were anywhere in the world and it's nice and sunny by you, you should know we're going into our bad time where the weather is humid, it's hot, and it rains every afternoon. But that's not why you came here. You came here because you want to hear about condos, and I got just the person to tell you all about condos. My partner, long time. She's been an agent broker for 20 years or so. She also did finance prior to that. She was a lender. No one else but Jenny Huertas, name of her company, she's a broker owner, is CVR Realty. You can find her at cvrrealty.com. Jenny, happy hurricane season.
Happy June, Peter. Perfect day.
Happy June. Happy June is right. Jenny, we got about an hour, and we're going to try to hit on some real-time type of topics. And what we want to talk about today is we're going to talk about greater downtown Miami condo pricing, but more importantly, we're going to talk about rental pricing. Why are we going to talk about rental pricing? Because the revenue from rental is what drives the value of condos, generally speaking. Many people will tell us, well, I got more money than God. I can do what I want, blah, 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 blah. But then when the reality sets in, you actually focus on rental prices. Well, what are rental prices? And that, therefore, is what you're going to pay for a condo. So that's what we're going to get into. We'll get into condos. What are the things pricing out at? Then we're going to get into the rental game. But before we do that, I also want to talk about some other categories. I'm just going to sort of give everybody an idea of what's on our agenda. We're going to talk about the best and the worst condos in the Tri-County, South Florida area of Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. 22 markets we're going to look at, and how are we going to come up with it? Well, on January the 1st of this year, we created a Miami Condo Cliff Index. And what it does is it's tracking markets based on active listings as well as pending sales. Many of you and many of us rely on closed sales data. Closed sales data is days, weeks, months old. And by the time the data comes out, the market's already changed a lot of times. I mean, think about it. For instance, if you were going off of numbers for the first quarter of this year, and lo and behold, Liberation Day happens on April the 2nd, the world changed. So the data you had before isn't necessarily going to apply to where we are today. So we're going to rely on our Condo Cliff Index statistic. We run them every Monday. We're going to tell you which markets are performing the best, which ones are performing the worst. Jenny doesn't know what the list is, so this is going to be fun because I'm going to spring markets on her. And I want to get her reaction as to what she thinks of somebody who's been on the ground for 20 plus years. But Jenny, you lived in South Florida since what, 92?
92, right after Andrew.
Right. So you arrived right after Hurricane Andrew. Anybody
Yes.
doesn't know Hurricane Andrew? It was one of those moments in South Florida history, if you will, where everything sort of changed. Prior to Hurricane Andrew, which came rolling in August of 1992, what you had is developers were building and builders were building all kinds of different stuff. There was it was lackadaisical kind of building code. Andrew comes rolling through, massive damage, massive issues related to the construction. State moves forward, as well as the counties in Dade and Broward County. They move forward. They put in place all kinds of standards. Everything changes. Fast forward to June of 2021, and Surfside happens. Once the Surfside condo collapse occurs, nearly 100 people died. A $1 billion settlement is paid out to the families of the victims. And then everything changed. So Jenny, you've been here through 2 crucial moments in South Florida history, especially as it pertains to real estate.
Yes, exactly. It's interesting because after Andrew, the construction got better. Like we have impact windows, right? But at the same time, fast forward to what happened in Surfside. Now we are looking at all the buildings that they didn't exactly have the same type of construction, and then they became a liability.
You know, and one of the questions everybody is asking, and I don't want you to answer it now because I want everybody to stick around. We got them for an hour. One of the questions everybody's asking is, well, you know, listen, if all these old condos are in trouble, why would I buy one? And there may or may not be a good answer to that. And question number two, well, why don't I just buy new? So, Jenny, do not answer those questions yet. We will circle back to that, and we will ask you for your expert opinion at that moment in time. But before we sort of get rolling in a variety of different topics we're going to be dealing with, I want to give everybody an update. On Saturday, we did our first summer Miami Condo Correction Tour. And what it was is a bunch of us got together. We went out to the Biscayne Boulevard corridor area. And if you don't know Greater Downtown Miami, let me break it down real simple for you. It's about a 60-block stretch from north to south. It goes from the Julia Tuttle Causeway, which is about 36 to the north, all the way south. And once you hit Flagler, the street numbers go down. So when you're on Flagler and you go north, street numbers go up. When you're on Flagler and you go south, street numbers go up as well. So Flagler is the meridian, if you will, Flagler and Miami Avenue. But so Greater Downtown Miami, it's going to go from 36 all the way down to the Rickenbacker Causeway, which would be about 24th, 25th Street or so. And then we're also going to have the Bay to the east, and we will have Interstate 95 to the west. Now, the way we've always looked at the market, and we like to claim credit for actually putting it in place, prior to us coming out in the early 2000s and sort of tracking the condo market the way we did, everybody would just sort of called it Miami or Greater Miami or something like that. But they weren't really looking at physical boundaries or anything that kind of separated. A lot of people relied on something called the Miami Downtown Development Authority, who is a taxing district, but their lines are gerrymandered in terms of what they tax, so what they monitor. And people don't necessarily rely on simply what's going on within a taxing district. They rely on what's going on in kind of like an overall neighborhood. So we came out with this, and we have 3 submarkets in this Greater Downtown Miami area. By the way, there's about 54,000 condos in here. When we first started tracking it, there were about 11,000 condos, just to give you context. That would have been early 2000s. So these 3 submarkets to the north would be Biscayne Boulevard corridor. That's going to go from the Julia Tuttle heading south, so like 36th Street, going south to like the MacArthur Causeway, which would be about 13th, 14th Street or so. It's kind of in flux right now because they're doing a massive infrastructure project, and streets are getting eliminated and everything's getting shifted. So that would be Biscayne Boulevard corridor. That's when you're going to get your Edgewater, your Wynwood, your Midtown. Now, from the MacArthur Causeway to the river, this is where Bayside's going to be. This is where the the Frost Science Museum is. This is where the Perez Art Museum is. That's going to be downtown Miami or the Central Business District. That's primarily where the courthouses are, anything government related. Now, when you get to the river and you go south, all the way down to the Rickenbacker Causeway, which is a road that takes you into Key Biscayne, and if you were to continue south, you'd end up in Coconut Grove. That area we call the Brickell Avenue area. So we got these 3 different areas. And what we did on Saturday is we did our first tour of the summer. It's called Miami Condo Correction Tour. And I got to give Jenny credit for coming up with the tour. She came up with the tour idea back in, what was it, Jenny, 2013, 2014?
Yeah, it was the beginning of 14. Yes.
So at the time we were coming out of the Great Recession, a lot of people were very interested in all the new construction that was going on. So Jenny says, well, I want to get everybody together on a bus and drive them around. And at the time we were just getting going. So Jenny, why don't you finish this, or why don't you take up the story as to how we got in the bus and what kind of bus we took people around on the first go around.
Yeah, and that's pretty funny. Yeah, we moved the office to a brand new building that it was really white, like a whole white building, and Sky View 22. And then I saw a tour bus, a Colombian little bus that is called the Chiva, and it's colorful and everything. And I had the idea. I said, hey, why we don't do a tour? Peter is so good with the stats. He knows the market. Why we don't do a tour with all these condos that are coming up? And I called the Chiva, but it was too small. And then it was another Chiva. It's another bus, kind of like a Colombian folk bus. And
I don't want, if I can interrupt, Jenny, so everybody knows. So the buses down here, the Colombian party buses, if you will, what happens is you get on there, they give you all the booze you can drink. The music is blasting, and they drive you around all the hip areas or the popular areas. And as you go through, everybody on the street sort of screams, and everybody in the bus sort of screams. So we rented one of these. They were cleaning it out. The night before they were partying. That night they were going to party. In the meantime, they had some guys hosing it down to make it clean so we could get all these people in and take them on a tour. that's a little bit of embellishment in terms of wiping it down, but that was the general concept. So anyways, Jenny, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
but this is the funny part. The funny part is that I asked them, what is the capacity? And they told me 30 people. But they, they changed completely it was to make it like a party. So the seats were really small. They fit 30 Colombians maybe. Yeah, I'm kidding, Colombians. It was so funny because we have like a bar that we didn't use. Like it was just a funny experience. And I remember actually, I think it was 2013. No. When is
Yeah,
Art
no, it was
Basel?
13. It was like December of 13.
Yeah, because it was Art Basel. It was Art
Yes.
Basel weekend. I
Yes.
remember, and
And Art
and
Basel, if anybody doesn't know, is an international art festival fair. Top name artists from all over the world come. There's 3 of them held throughout the world. I think maybe it's 4 now, but it's in Basel,
beginning of
Switzerland.
December.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basel, Switzerland. It's in Miami and it's in Hong Kong. At least that's where the way it was. It's been around here for 20 something years in South Florida. Really kind of put
Yes.
this region on the map in terms of the arts.
Yeah. So it was really funny because Peter was holding a microphone. It looks like you go to Colombia and you go to a tour and the guy saying, "This is the mountain," and the bus moves and nobody would fit really there. So everybody was like this. And we oversold it because it was a new idea. So yes, for the next tours we got proper buses or proper accommodations for people but that was, I will never forget that day.
And we actually got to the point where so many people were interested in these tours because remember, it was a boom time. So many people were interested in tours. We were renting out buses, those like the same type of bus you'd get into if you were going to ride from Miami to New York. 55-person bus or so, roughly. Massive buses. And we couldn't get them down the streets of greater downtown Miami because at the time you had these small little 2-story houses, chickens everywhere, all kind of people parked on the sidewalks, this and that. It was real for the bus drivers. So then we had to go to like 25, 30 seat buses.
Yeah.
And then over the course of time, the boom kind of ran its course. And then we started doing tours again, but they were focused more so on a correcting market. The market cooperated for a little bit, and then lo and behold, we had the pandemic. And during the pandemic, we had an initial downturn, and then we went up tremendously. 21, 22, the winter of 21, 22, if you go back and look at the statistics, you will see that sales double, tripled, quadrupled in terms of transactions, and that pricing was not far behind. And now we're kind of at that point, Jenny, where we're, do the trees actually grow to the moon, or are we going to get back to some sort of normalcy? So far, the statistics suggest we're going back to normalcy. And because of that, we are bringing back our tours. I did it on Saturday, John. It was a 3-hour tour. So roughly 3-hour tour. We walked a little bit over 4 miles. We went all over Biscayne Boulevard corridor, gave everybody handouts, taught them how to analyze these buildings, gave them, more importantly, all the statistics related to each building. So everybody actually got a list of all 69 towers that exist in this area, which again, will be Julia Tuttle to the MacArthur to the south, the Bay to the east, and I-95 to the west. And what was interesting, Jenny, in walking it, a lot of the stuff that we used to take people around when we were in the buses, and who knows if the market really goes to shit, maybe we'll have to fill buses to take people around and be able to analyze all these different buildings because there's so many of them. But what was interesting in walking it is there's so many sites that they've simply cleared. They knocked down these 2-story buildings. They knocked down these 3-story buildings. And Jenny, what do we see now? We see green. And what I always told everybody when going way back when we started bus tours in 2013, 2014, when you see green space in Miami, it's not a park. It's a condo development site.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've been around and I've seen a lot of things happening. Actually, they happen faster than I thought they would. But now it's a different story.
Now, yep, correct. Now it's a different story. So, why don't we go ahead and start to get into some of the, let's talk about Greater Downtown Miami first. Remember, we're going to talk Greater Downtown Miami. Let me give you an overview of what's going on with the condominium market. Then we're going to transition into the rental market. This isn't really about condo sales prices, none of that. We're going to talk more so about the rentals. What are the nuances of rentals? How do you understand the rental market? Are renters paying price per square foot, or are they simply paying price per unit and they could care less if it's a big unit, a small unit, that type of situation. And again, after that, we'll get into best and worst condo markets in all of the Tri-County South Florida area, 22 markets plus the South Florida number. And so let's go ahead and get started, Jenny, real quick. This is not meant to be like a statistical put you to sleep type of conversation. We're going to talk about just real big picture kinds of numbers. So let me just pull this up real quick, Jen. I'm going to read it out to you so you get some perspective. So what do we got going on in greater downtown Miami? Remember, Julia Tuttle south of the Rickenbacker Causeway. They got Biscayne Bay west to Interstate 95. We got about 2,800 condos on the market right now in the 6 months of the winter buying season, which was November through April, basically when it was dry, when there were events going on, when everybody was in town, carnival-like atmosphere. So during that winter, we moved about 823 condos in the greater downtown Miami area, or an average of about 137 a month. But here's the rub, Jen. We're moving at 137 condos a month transacting. We got 2,800 for sale. So what does that mean? That means we got 20.7 months of supply. Now you don't have to be a mathematical genius or anything. All you need to know is when you have a condo market, it's supposed to have 6 months. 6 months, that's it. Anything less means the seller can say, listen, I got gold. There's not enough out there. You don't like it. I don't care. Piss off. If you do like it, you're going to pay my price. Now, when you hit that 6 months, it's a give and take. Now, when you go north of 6 months, buyer gets to say, listen, there's so much to choose from. I'm not going to pay you for that. You think it's gold. I think it's more like copper, if you will. And that's kind of where we are. So where are we in greater downtown Miami right now? We're looking at 21 months of supply, which by anybody's standards, we are in a buyer's market. Now, the supply in terms of on the market has not gone up to astronomical numbers like we saw during the Great Recession. But what has happened is sales have fallen off a cliff. And as they've fallen off the cliff and as people are dealing with the day-to-day, many of them are increasingly under pressure because of rising maintenance fees, because of special assessments, because of insurance. Remember, hurricane season starts again today. Just because a storm hits on the West Coast, it doesn't mean your prices on the East Coast don't also go up. So as everybody's costs are increasing, they're starting to say, boy, I can't make this happen anymore. Why don't I try to sell? And they're putting them on the units on the market, but they're not trading. They're absolutely not trading. And I would venture to guess, Jen, and I want your response to this. I'd venture to guess that people trying to sell today, they've been through it before. They know the price they get today is probably going to be higher than the price they will get a month from now or a year from now, simply because as it starts to unwind, there's no telling how low it can go from what I've seen and experienced. So what say you, Jenny?
The thing is, the psychology is finally changing. They need to see, they don't do it in the rumor. They do it when it's already a news. And actually in our, the Association of Realtors and all these agencies are reporting that we're actually in a buyer's market. So people is actually realizing, but it's a psychological thing with it. And they say, okay, I'm going to have if either rent it or lower the price to a competitive price. So I can put it, when I talk to people, I say, just tell me the lowest price that you're comfortable getting for any property, any given property. And that's the way you should go. Don't start doing $5,000 deductions every month, because that's even something that I look when I'm helping a buyer. I say, this person is lowering the price little by little. So maybe give me the opportunity to write a lowball offer, because I know hurting, but doesn't want to. And that's what is happening right now.
So that's sort of the vibrance now. That's what's happening. So it's almost like death by 1,000 cuts. So when you cut by 5%, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, you start to build a trend. And as you see a trend, the person can say, well, why would I move now? Because the trend hasn't bottomed and then it hasn't started going up yet. So that's something to keep in mind, Jenny. And that's actually great advice. Jenny, last week we talked about a member of this club I set up, the Miami Condo Investing Club, for people who are all condo related. We share data, we do all this type of stuff. But one of the members at our last meetup, we got together, we had some drinks, we talked shop, everybody bitched and moaned, they did all this type of stuff. But one of the points that was brought up is that if I'm a realtor and I take on a listing, my burn rate, my cost of that listing is going to be ballpark $2,500, because I need to do the photos, I need to do the videos, I need to advertise it on Google, I need to advertise on social media, all this type of stuff. So Jenny, I wonder, when you hear that there's 21 months supply, and you look at how many units there are, and if you just assume what this member of the club told me, $2,500 ballpark, What sort of happens if a unit doesn't trade and you're sitting there burning cash on Google AdWords and Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok and all this type of stuff? How does it work from a broker's perspective? And you're somebody who works on both the buy side and sell side. You tend to really excel on the buy side. You also do listings. A lot of times they're for people who've purchased with you. Now you
Uh,
simply get them out where they're able to take advantage of buying low and selling high. But Jenny, walk us through the tipping point when you were a listing agent and everybody's calling you up, they want to see it. You go down there, it costs $25 to park. You schlep up into the room, into the apartment. You got to make sure, the owner's gone, or if there's renters, that they're gone so you can show the property. It lasts 10 minutes, then you never hear from the people again. Well, what point do you get frustrated? You say, you know what? I don't want listings anymore. I'd rather work on the buy side.
I just won't take those listings. I won't go through that exercise. And I know people wants to have listings because they have the idea that if they have listings, they get more listings. That
Well,
probably
you
listings
got to
in,
burn $2,500 to
yeah,
get
I
the
know.
list. That's out of pocket. That's like, okay, you're going to give me the listing, and here's $2,500 in order for you to give me the listing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, right now, because the since August last year, we can negotiate with sellers. We can ask them for a marketing fee. We can have consulting fees. So yes, you have to get paid some way, somehow. So if it depends, I would not. I take a look at the listing, and the person think that the wall that she painted in red makes that condo $50,000 more than the competition. I just won't take it. I just won't take it. That happened to me actually. In I had somebody that request me for listing. I said, "What is your price?" And told me this. I said, "She's like 100,000 above the price, and 50,000 above what the other people is." And I told her no. And she got another broker. And I went to see that unit with the buyer. And she told me that she's showing it, and she doesn't get any contracts. So we are not in the business of showing people for sellers or for buyers. We are in the business to advise people and make this process easier, shorter, and sweeter if it's that possible.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's my taking, but I know other brokers will take anything just to see if that will spark other business. That's their prerogative.
Yeah, 100%. But at 2,500 bucks a shot, that's quite the commitment to a property you're not necessarily gung ho on. Jenny, you made reference to the fact that last August there was some change and now you can negotiate. Well, what you were referring to is a settlement as a result of a class action lawsuit related to the National Association of Realtors and commissions and who pays them and yada, yada, yada. So in August of last year, 2024, Realtor Association came out adhering to some sort of agreement that was signed off on by a judge. And now each side gets paid on their further services. So if you were a buyer and you're coming down to take a look at a property, the agent you talk to is going to have to get you to paper up. You're going to be signing the commission agreement saying you're paying that person. It could be just to show one property, but you got to sign something now. On the sell side, the seller is going to have to get a signed agreement from the property owner, or excuse me,
Yes.
the listing agent has to get it from the property owner. So Jenny, here's sort of my question to you. We have this market where nothing's trading, nothing's transacting. You got some months of supplies going up. And, I would venture to guess we got a bunch of DIYers, do-it-yourselfers, who are actually jumping in and they're taking a shot at it. Are you seeing any repercussions thus far of people going it alone, DIYing it, rather than bringing on a buy-side broker? And do you have any thoughts about whether or not these DIYers, are they doing better than if they had a broker? Are they doing worse? And are they using the 3% in theory that they should be paying to a buy-side broker? Are they using that to discount the price? So any thoughts on that, big picture-wise?
I haven't seen a lot of cases like that. What I've seen is like the seller is willing to pay the buyer's broker commission like it was before, just because they have a sense that it's going to be easier to be, to get a transaction. So it's most likely it was the way it was before, but it's all clear. Everybody signs. And for agents that are helping buyers, it's great because now they have a commitment with you. It doesn't matter who pays. It pays the seller or you negotiate it in the price. It's all about negotiation and transparency. And I am really happy that this happened. There was a lot of confusion. A lot of the agents were freaking out over this news. But when you explain to the consumers, because they're not called anymore clients, they call consumers. Actually, in the paper, it says consumers. So they have the rights. You can share the information with them, and it's all clear. I mean, everybody works for a fee, and even if you want to, let's say somebody wants your expertise, and they want to, they say they're not interested in buying today because the market is tall, and they say, listen, I can pay you a consulting fee, and you can make your price. You can do it by hour. You can make it in a week. You can make it every time you go out. It's all up to you and to him to negotiate. And it's not part of the commission. That's completely aside of the commission. That's a consulting fee that is non-refundable and it's not part of the commission.
And that's one of the reasons. That was one of the impetus behind starting the Miami Condo Investing Club. By the way, here's the plug. Go to miamicondo.club if you want more information. That's where we're pulling data and we're sharing the data. We're going through, we're laying it out there, and the real estate industry doesn't necessarily like it because it kind of blows in the face. It's a headwind for a lot of the, let's call it fluff that's being put out there. And we're just laying it out there, and the members of the club, they're able to get this. And then once a month, I do a virtual monthly meeting with them. And then that's where the tours come in. So if you did want to DIY it, there's increasingly the possibility to do so. Statistics are out there. There's all kinds of advisors in and around. But what I would say is I think many people, unless you're really committed to it, you're probably going to opt to go with a broker because a broker will handle all of the BS. Let me schedule a showing. Let me deal with this. Let me deal with that. It's so damn time consuming. It's not like going on Uber Eats and ordering a meal and it just gets delivered nice.
Yeah.
And no, there's so much downtime. It's such an inefficient system that I think a lot of people get frustrated. I mean, think about it like a for sale by owner. It's the same type of process. You got all these dumbasses calling you. They don't know anything. They're trying to sell you something else. Hey, you want to buy Freon for your air conditioner? It could be like anything. So that's a big picture, but we're here to talk about rentals, and I think this is a great lead up to the rentals. So,
Can I say something else
Yes.
about what you just said?
Please.
When the DIY person goes, for
DIY.
example, to DIY,
Do it yourself.
yourself.
No, you're putting it in
DIY.
Spanish. You're putting it, everything in Spanish is like reverse.
I know. So when they go to open house, they need to be papered up anyway.
That's right.
So at the end, it's not gonna be that they're gonna write a contract. I want to buy this property for this and this and these are my terms. Unless they have a lawyer that is a real estate lawyer and is willing to do all that for him, which is not gonna do it for free. It's gonna be at the end, it's gonna be paying the same or more if it doesn't get the expertise from a buyer broker. Okay, go ahead.
Great point. Okay, so let me just let me put this in everybody's head. Then we're gonna get to the rental game. So there is a concept when you're trying to figure out where am I gonna buy, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And Jenny hates this. She hates this, but I'm gonna tell you anyways because I think it's critical for you to understand the marketplace. There's a rule called the 1% rule. 1% rule is real simple. 1 month's of rent needs to basically represent 1% of the value. So, for instance, if you get $1,000 a month in rent, that means your place is worth $100,000. If you get $10,000 a month in rent, that means your place is worth $1 million. If you have a place that you think is worth $1.7 million, you need $17,000 a month in rent. Now, real simple, back of the napkin, keep it simple, but it's a way to figure out where should I waste my time doing due diligence. Otherwise, you're going to go look at every freaking unit and they're not going to make sense. They do make sense. This is just an easy way. Like, okay, let me eliminate. There's so much to choose from. Let me see what's left after I've eliminated everything that I dislike. And now I'll spend my time or waste my time either doing due diligence or going to see them. So that's the rule. 1%. $1,000 a month means $100,000 in value. Jenny, any quick reaction before we get to the rental game?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Please do tell.
It's not realistic. It's not realistic. I'm going to give you an example. And yes, it might be in submarkets west of I-95 where you can get something property for even there for $200,000 and the rent being $2,000, and I have a very hard time thinking that those numbers would work. People is banking on the appreciation, on the any the luxury or the no luxury or the space or the convenience or so many factors, but the 1% rule, unfortunately, is not realistic.
That's
might
what I
be.
wanted to hear, because I'm going to spring an example on you
There
moving forward.
is.
I
Oh,
found one. I found one in doing the tour this weekend. Somebody asked me about that. We went through, I spotted a building. I walked through my basics. Again, I just look at numbers. Jenny's much better at all that. I'm a macro person. I actually found an example where it worked in greater downtown Miami today.
Really?
I do. But again, you got to stick around if you want.
Yeah, okay.
You want to figure out where it is. It's like after this messages, we'll get into it. Sorry,
Yeah,
Jen.
no, I don't want to ask you if because I think it's pretty hard to find something like that. I just want you to describe it.
Okay. Well, we're not going to do it yet. We're laying the scene. Okay. So the scene is a lot of product, 21 months of supply. The
Yeah.
scene is maintenance fees going up, special assessments going up, insurance going up, primarily because of Surfside. Surfside was that moment in time, just like Andrew was back in 1992 when Jenny first got down here. These are moments in time where things sort of change. So now you rely on the 1% rule. So you go to the market and say, Peter, listen, I want to buy a condo. I'm not sure, whatever, when's the right time. And what I always tell them, listen, rely on the fundamentals. Go back to the fundamentals. Use the 1% rule. You find something in the ballpark, then go roll up your sleeves, do the due diligence, see if you can find something, or eventually the market will come to you and then you can move at that moment of time. There's really no urgency from my perspective. Now, I'm not an emotional type of person. A lot of people, oh my God, I love it. Did you see that red wall? And because of the red wall, I'm going to pay so much more type of scenario. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Now, Jen, let's talk a little bit about the rental market here, because this is what we were sort of promoting. Right now today, greater downtown Miami, you're looking at about 2,250 units on the market in this stretch from the Julia Tuttle down to the Rickenbacker, I-95 to the Bay. I just keep repeating it because I want people to have an understanding of what we're talking about. Generally speaking, when you look at this area, the Biscayne Boulevard corridor where Edgewater is, Midtown, stuff like that, that is primarily where, think of it like your starter condo, or you're just beginning your career. And again, here's where I piss people off. You just begin your career. So you start to the north as you're up and coming and you're hitting your stride. Then you're in the downtown or the central business district, which would be the MacArthur to the river, Miami River.
Mhm.
And then when you're in Brickell, especially all the way to the south, now you're kind of long in the tooth. You're a fat cat. You're kicking back. You've accomplished everything you need to do. So when you think of it that way, I just want you to have sort of an understanding, at least from somebody who's been on the ground and been studying this market for 30 years or so. So that's my big picture. Jenny, do you have any pushback on my description about how each submarket is different?
No, I agree with the submarkets.
Okay.
I do not agree with when you say that Brickell is for the fat cats. It should be for the fat.
I know some fat cats who are on Brickell.
Wait. Oh, I do too. But a lot of the people spend more than 70% of what they make into a rental in a place like Brickell or downtown, because Miami is a show off place.
Vanity in Miami?
Vanity.
Never.
So-
Never.
And vanity is expensive.
I'm shocked.
So vanity is expensive. So I agree with you, but it's a sector of the population in that particular area that they share with their boyfriend, girlfriend, or with friends in order to be in such location.
All right, fair enough. And as we get into this rental data, let me just give a real quick disclaimer. Anybody who gives you rental data doesn't have right information. The information I'm going to give you is not right. Why is it not right? There's no public record recorded. When you complete a lease, nothing is signed. There's no timestamp from a local government, where it can ultimately be recorded and it can be compared. Rental data is bad. Any big group that comes out and says, this is what the rental market is, complete BS. Now, why is it BS? Well, if you look at the data we're going to refer to, this has come out of the multiple listing service. This is a database that realtors use, basically to market product. This is where you're going to primarily, a professor told me, professor used to be at Florida Atlantic University. Now I think he's at the University of Mississippi. He's a real estate professor, university professor. He told me 85% of Zillow is actually the MLS. So the MLS, you enter stuff in and you change things and you do a variety of different things. That is what you're relying on. You're relying upon somebody to put in information. They may or may not do it correctly. They may or may not have made a mistake intentionally. This is something you need to keep in mind. You say, well, why would they make a mistake intentionally? Well, because if you're somebody who can do big deals at a certain price in a certain market, everybody else who wants to match that price, they're all going to come to you. True or false? How do you verify a lease? There's no way to verify it unless you even see the lease. And then even when you see the lease, you don't even know if that's real because there might have been some sort of incentive given on the back end. So that being said, rental data is bad. And it also does not factor in what's called real estate investment trust. These are, think of it like a publicly traded company. It's an entity and it's all they do is real estate. Well, these people, their typical real estate commission is about 10% of the gross annual rent. So remember we said $1,000 a month means $100,000. So at $1,000 a month over the course of 12 months in a year, you got 12 grand. There's a 10% commission, generally speaking, and everything's negotiable. 10% commission, that means you're paying out a commission of $1,200, roughly, if you're the landlord. You're doing half is going to the landlord rep and the other half's going to the tenant rep. So you got 300 units times $1,200. That's a lot of money. So what do? You hire two people, you put them in a leasing office, you pay them each 50 grand, and you're able to save money there. But because you put them in the leasing office, you're not using realtors. You're not offering commissions. Therefore, they never make it into the database, which is called the MLS. So rental data is bad. Do not believe it. And because of that, when you do pull rental data, rely on median only. It's licking your finger, holding it up and seeing which way the wind blows. And so what we're going to refer to here is simply licking our finger, holding up the finger and seeing which way the wind blows. And we're going to go off the median. Median's right in the middle. And it factors in daily, weekly, monthly, annual, blah, 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 blah. So it's just, it's like trying to navigate on the ocean using the sun and the stars effectively rather than GPS, which is what you can do primarily with the transaction. So all that being said, here's what we got going on. Jenny, the median ask price, remember the one right in the middle, graded downtown Miami today, $4,000 a month and or $4.41 a square foot per month. And and these places have been on the market for 42 days in counting. So let me repeat that. $4,000 a month is what they want. $4.41 is what they're asking per square foot monthly. And they've been on the market for 42 days and counting. Now, what's your immediate reaction to that, given the fact that I rely on the 1% rule? So to me, this would suggest a condo in downtown Miami is worth $400,000, not the prices that are being sought after today, which is north of $1.3 million.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck.
So you're saying the fundamentals might be fundamental, but they're fundamentally flawed because nobody in the right mind is going to sell for that price.
Yes, I have to say something because
Please.
when you say media, you are
it's just the one right in the middle, right in the middle.
Yeah, but the studios, that include the studios or just one bedroom?
No, it'll be studios efficiencies. It'll be apartments where these REITs actually make it available. It'll be it's going to be efficiencies, studios, basically everything except the single family house within a boundary area that is resident. Yep.
No, the reason why I ask is because since the smaller spaces are much more expensive per square foot, that if you rent a bigger place, that's what your price comes up to $4 per square foot. And your one famous 1% rule tells you that the price will be $400,000.
My 1% rule. A lot of people say Warren Buffett goes by it. And if you think he's only good at stocks and not real estate, Investopedia has actually got a definition. Type in 1% rule and look at any kind of financial site. You will see it's actually a thing. It's just a lot of people don't like to rely on it because it slows you down and people buy out of emotion. They don't want to buy out of fundamentals. Like I will withhold buying something because it's 20 cents cheaper, 5 miles down. Now I'm going to burn more money in walking there or taking the train there. But I'm going to save that 20 or 30 cents. That's just my perspective. A lot of people are not like that.
No, exactly. That's exactly the point. But maybe Buffett is taking account a whole entire market, for example, in any given state, that's why South Florida is so different. That's why
right.
Every submarket is so different. It's like comparing Manhattan with Queens in one place, for example, in New York. So that's why the 1% rule, when you talk about great downtown Miami, newer buildings will never, ever match.
They never,
You
ever,
say
ever. Yep. They never
nice
match
buildings.
until they do.
Until they do, but nice buildings. So I am very curious to see what you're going to present.
Yep. And we still got 21 minutes left. So I'm going to drag this one out. So Jenny, I made a quick reference there to what condos are going for in the market right now. So Greater Downtown Miami, as of the 1st of June, when I pulled the stats, average ask is $1.3 million a door, $1.3 million a door or per unit, 1.3, which means I need 13 grand a month rent. Now, the units that traded or transacted during the winter buying season, November through April, so November of 24 through April of 25, they traded at an average price of just under $965,000, which means I need $9,700 a month in rent. But on the rental side, the median ask is $4 grand. What do you make of that? Where is the disconnect? Did people pay too much for their condos? Are they're parking their money here because of maybe political questions or instability in the home country? Maybe they got a currency advantage, the dollar is weakening. I mean, what have you seen over the course of time? And how do you justify, again, you don't agree with the 1% rule, but how do you square the difference in what people are paying? So I'm paying $965 in the winter, $965,000 a door, but I'm only asking $4 grand on a median basis. Now the average price is the price on the sale is an average. And this is a median, so it's not apples to apples, but it's good for a conversation of us going back and forth with. So how would you sort of react to that?
Number one, it's not that I disagree with the 1%. That would be the smart thing to do. If you are,
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're an investor. That means that you will never buy in this submarket because those prices, I don't see those prices going down that way. That would be 50 cents on the dollar that is happening now. Second of all, I cannot make sense. I cannot tell an investor, hey, this is a great deal. You're getting this for $900 and you're getting $4,000 a month, because it's gonna laugh in my face.
We're
Number
the
one.
gateway to Latin America. 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida.
Yeah.
We're the next emerging city. Ken Griffin, the billionaire, worth $42 billion. He says Miami will replace New York as the financial capital of not only the country, but possibly the world. How could it not be getting higher rent?
Yes, but I think a lot of people is banking their money here because they believe that the United States is a better place to put their money. They always feel safer to put their money in this financial market until it's not. So right now we have a lot of we don't know what's going to happen. It's very uncertain. So now I think my theory is people is holding off and saying, okay, I don't like to talk about politics or anything like that, but we're living in a moment in the world
Of uncertainty.
Of uncertainty, wars, political situations, etc. So
Yeah.
when I ask people who is transacting, who is buying, when I see it in the office, who is buying a property. So it's people that come, for example, from countries that they are doing, like Turkey. I never thought of that. And Colombians still buy here because they want to have a plan B because they don't believe in their government. Others because they have so much money, and Miami is a place to put their money, like the same way they do it in London or New York. And because all these factors of people coming from different places or for different reasons, like there is the 1% of the world do play in Miami. So they would pay all these astronomical prices, and they would even ask how much is the rental, because they will have it empty for the whole year except for 6 weeks that they come here.
Now, maybe you raise a good point. Maybe some of these people are able to Airbnb it. Maybe because you're not going to use the MLS Airbnb, so that could be a solution. And that could be a really good point. Jenny, just because we're up against the clock, let me hit on some key points. Let me just kind of lay it out in terms of rentals. Again, Greater Downtown Miami. So and this is the winter of this is November through April. So the winter of 24-25, we did 3,400 leases. $3,600 a month is the median transaction price. Remember, they're asking 4Gs. 3,600 is what they actually got. Year prior, they got $3,500 a month on a median basis. Year prior to that, which is 22-23 winter, 3,600, 21-22, 3,600. We get to 2021. What is the pandemic? We were kind of early stages coming out of it. This is about the time people could come down and twerk on a police car, and they didn't have to wear a mask. A lot of people came here because the idea of twerking on a police car in Miami Beach, I guess, got a lot of people excited. And that's a little sarcastic.
I know.
But 2021, Jenny, the median was 2,400. So we went from 2,400 median to $3,600 over the course of one winter, just to give you context. Now, the year the pandemic breaks, remember, we got the Super Bowl here in February of 2020. By March, everything gets shut down. So we got most of the winter in because, again, November through April, 2,400. And where were we prior to the pandemic year, winter year? We were 2,350. So we were running steady, 2,400 or so. All of a sudden, we're at 3,600. And now people are trying to push for 4Gs a month rent. Meanwhile, all these additional condos, as well as rentals built by REITs, because interest rates were low. Remember, Chairman Powell cut interest rates so low? Apartments started going up everywhere. So based on that case, do you still think we're going to hold firm at $3,600 a month from what you're seeing? Because I would take the other side, saying that we got to go back, and our real price rent-wise is probably $2,400. So if you're trading at $965 a door, which they get in the winter, and if you're asking $4,000 a month rent, and you're getting $3,600, but prior to the pandemic you were getting $2,400. I'd say we got a lot of room to pull back on rentals. And as we pull back on rentals, the prices come down. That would be my argument. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Yes, I tell you why. I'll tell you because I have a good example.
Okay.
I was living rental on 2021 because I sold my property and I was renting in 2021. And I bought my property on that year because the interests were very low and the prices were low as well.
Yep.
And the rents were low as well. And you fast forward a few years, then you have super high interest rate. So why the rentals are so high? Why they're staying longer? Why the people is keeping their tenants if they're good tenants and just raise a little bit? Because it became a renter's paradise. Not because they want to own a place, but it's just not feasible because it's way too expensive. You need some sort of financing. Instead of paying $2,500 a month, you're gonna pay you need at least $5,000 to $7,000 a month to own any one bedroom apartment in greater downtown Miami. So that's what I think the prices. That's my theory based on what the numbers you just gave me.
All right. So you're saying a lot of the money that's here that bought these condos, it's not chasing a return. It's more so chasing security. So it's the old saying, it's not about return on your money, but return of your money. That's what you're saying. And because remember, 54% of this county, Miami-Dade County, is foreign born. We have a very international community, a lot of cultural affinity. Maybe somebody comes there, they buy something, their friends and family come over, they fall in love with it, they also buy, and so on and so on and so on. So
Yeah.
that's kind of backstopping the market price-wise from what you can see.
Yes. However, I don't know for how long it's gonna stay like that.
Now, is
based
this
on-
because of immigration policy and this because of some of the stances? Actually, so I guess what you're saying, sorry to interrupt, but what you're saying is this has traditionally been how it is because, when you're growing up in Latin America or anywhere, you come to Miami for, your 15th birthday or whatever the case may be. You go up to Disney World while you're in high school.
Yeah.
You go back. Miami's like it's a regular place to go. But
Yeah.
now potentially because of policies by the current presidential administration, there might be a little bit of a feeling like maybe like what we see with the Canadians who claim they're disrespected and therefore they are looking to sell. They don't want to come down here and spend money. They don't want to participate in kind of what's going on here. So that's sort of your concern.
I think that's a concern. I think for everybody, even if you don't want to recognize it because you don't. I mean, psychologically, as a
Yeah.
real estate professional, you don't want to think about bad things like could impact your business. But I think it's impacting us all in different fields. But I believe we need a little bit more of to get back that sense of security that we had before for many, many years.
Jenny, real quick, we got 1 minute to answer this, and then we're going on the best and worst because I'm looking at the clock here. So, in the winter of 2018, 2019, places were on the market 49 days before they rented. The year of 21, 22, remember, no mask, torque on a police car, everybody's here, took 20 days. The full process. You put the place for lease, it's signed, somebody's actually paying 20 days. Today we're sitting at 46 days. This winter we did 46 days. All the places on the market today, they're up on the market for 42 days. Anything that the audience can take from the fact that based on days on market, what does that say to you, especially when it comes to the rental game? Any wisdom you can share?
It's still, I mean, with those numbers, it's still a landlord's market. 42 days is not 120 days.
There's about 3.9 months of rental supply. So it is a landlord's market. Correct.
It's a landlord market because it's 6 months, the balance that, and I think we're becoming more and more a renter place in Southeast Florida, especially on the urban core.
Yeah.
Like, for example, just quickly, I think you get a much better deals if you go. Remember how expensive it was to live in South Beach before as compared as the city?
Yes.
Now it's the opposite. Now it's cheaper to rent over there than renting in the city. It's just, we switched.
All right, Jenny. So you haven't, and thank you for responding to that. So Jenny, you haven't seen this list yet. You were traveling over the weekend. You didn't have a chance to see it. We just released it. Came out on Sunday. We ranked the best and worst condo markets based on our Miami Condo Cliff Index. The index, for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's updated every Tuesday. We pull active listings. We also pull pending sales. We don't look at closed sales. Closed sales they're old. Who cares? It's kind of like you look at the stock market. Stock market's telling you where we're going in the future. Unemployment rates tells you where we were. So closed sales data is kind of like where we were. So we created an index sort of track it. We pegged it to January the 1st. Why? Because we were declaring this the Condo Association Financial Cliff because of all the reserve requirements and other things kicking in as a result of legislation following Surfside. So Jenny, through the first 5 months of the year, and we pulled it because now that we're in the beginning of summer, the visitors aren't coming as much as they were because the weather, the events, everything that goes on during the dry and during the wet, it takes a certain breed to be able to come here. So Jenny, let me hit you with the top 3 or 4 condo markets based on the index. The higher the number, the better. The lower the number, the worse. So Jenny, this is in order, and I just want to get your take on it. What you can tell us anything about these particular markets. The best condo market in all of South Florida is going to be Miami's Coconut Grove. This is overall condos. So the overall index score or baseline or number right now for South Florida, 7.18. Coconut Grove comes in at 15. So it's twice as good as their overall South Florida average. Miami's Upper East Side. This is going to be the area that's north of 36th Street. It'll take you all the way to the North Miami Shore. We call it the Miami Shores border up around, 87th or so. The third best market is Fisher Island. Fourth best is Boca Raton. And fifth best, Key Biscayne. Anything jump out to you about those markets? You could say they're exclusive, they're sort of special, but then you got to factor in Miami's Upper East Side. Any kind of insight you might be able to share with the audience about these rankings?
I know you're shooting me this information, and I just have to. React to
checking
it.
You on your, on your feet, on your heels, Dale.
Okay, Coconut Grove exclusive. High-end. Key Biscayne as well as Fisher Island. If you look at the Upper East Side, which is very good right now.
Upper East Side, yep.
And in that one, I had to speculate that there are some product that is being delivered that is better than whatever it was available there, and it might be the case. Or probably the prices are a little bit lower than here, and people is actually moving there.
Okay. And then Fisher Island?
Fisher Island is super exclusive. So Fisher Island's always been the most expensive zip code here, and it's very exclusive.
It's interesting about Fisher Island. I go there. I've been there a few times. I haven't been in a while. And a lot of the places are dumps. It's old ass product built in the 80s. Now, granted, they put up some some billionaire type of stuff, but a
Yeah.
lot of it is just old ass. You want to gut that thing. It's just like horrible. Then when you get there, you can't drive. You got to drive around a golf cart. It's a pain in the ass to get on the ferry, to go back and forth, the whole process, anybody
Yeah.
coming to visit. So, I'm probably the wrong person to be asking about it. But when I see Fisher Island there, it kind of surprises me, unless we got people going after value. Maybe they're buying some of these older ones, or maybe these places have been renovated and the ones that are trading, are trading at reasonable prices rather than exorbitant prices.
Exactly. That I think is probably the case, because remember how old is that Fisher Island is all Mediterranean, and they
Yeah.
want to keep that style, and I'm sure a lot of them are being completely remodeled.
Okay, now let's talk about the worst markets. These are the ones I like. The good stuff is like, who cares? Worst market in South Florida. Sunny Isles Beach, coming in at 4.12. 4.12, and just to juxtaposition that, the Grove was 15.00. South Florida average, 7.18. Sunny Isles Beach has got lots of trouble. Who's right after Sunny Isles Beach? Hollywood Hallandale, coming in at 4.39. Aventura, 4.55. Rounding out top five, we got North Bay Village coming in at 4.62. And who is the fifth worst market? Which is the fifth worst market? Greater Downtown Miami at 5.34. What do they all have in common? Well, I tell you the top three, they're all located in Northeast Miami-Dade County and Southeast Broward County. I would tell you they're sort of like in North Bay Village as well. They're the rest stop on the way to somewhere else. They're in between Fort Lauderdale and in between Miami. It's like somebody who can't make up their decision. So like, okay, let me buy here. Market changes, or they got a lot of old stuff. And then you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do with this? That would be my argument. But what do you think about the worst markets based on the index as of May to the 27th?
Okay, question
2025?
for you. The
Yep.
index that you're doing is all and new altogether?
Yeah. This is all. I have one for vintage, which is 30 years or more. This is the overall condo market.
Overall
Yep.
market.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I think it's too much inventory and too high. Even in
The
the
pricing.
vintage,
You're saying the pricing.
the
Like in
price is
Sunny
too
Isles,
high.
it's extraordinary pricing.
Extraordinary
What you need to
high.
achieve in order to
Yes.
even get close. I mean, 1% rule in Sunny Isles, it'll be like the 10% rule, because the freaking thing is so out of whack. Sorry, Jen,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think out of whack is a very good term to put it that way. That's why it's the worst. Totally out of whack. Even in older properties, even in older buildings. And I tell you, because my agents have in Hollywood and that area, condos are a really affordable price, and they're not moving because they're still expensive for what they used to be. So people don't see a value, even when the price is below $300,000 or on the $300,000 range. Out of whack. Okay, next market.
All right, and then finally, we're going to wrap it up. This is our last little topic before I shut down this Miami Condo Mondays. Remember, every Monday, 4 o'clock. So if you're riding the train home, maybe you're sick of listening to your boss before you knock off for the day, or you're in the car, instead of listening to some 1980s music or something, tune in and to us and figure out what's going on in the condo market. You can see we shoot straight. Jenny will give you her take. I'll give you my take, and then you guys will all have to decide individually who you think is right. Which I would tell you, stick with me. But you'll have to figure it out on your own. So let me give the vintage condo market. I have it right here in front of me. So vintage is going to be 30 years or more. Why is it 30 years or more? Because there's an inspection now required in the state of Florida called a milestone inspection report, milestone study, whatever you want to call it. When a building's 30 years old, based on its certificate of occupancy. So this is when they get the approval that, okay, people can move in. At that 30-year mark, they got to do an inspection, a thorough inspection. Then they got to allocate money, and they got to start doing the work so the thing doesn't fall down like we saw in Surfside. So that's called vintage. The vintage ones are the ones that are starting to dominate the market. About 50% of Miami-Dade County listings are vintage. You look at Broward and Palm Beach County, they're going to be some of the ballpark of 80%. A lot of people dumping vintage stuff. So that being said, let's get into the best vintage condo markets. Best is Miami's Coconut Grove. Number 2, West Palm Beach, which includes downtown as well as the island. Number 3, now here you go, Jenny. This is interesting. Miami's Little Havana. And number 4 will be Fisher Island. Remember, I told you Fisher Island's got old ass product. And then what's number 5? Miami's Upper East Side. So Miami's and just for kicks, Key Biscayne comes in at number 6. Let me give you those scores real quick. Overall, South Florida, 7.05 on the vintage. That's the average for South Florida. Coconut Grove coming in at 16.67. West Palm Beach, 13.7. Little Havana 13.51, Fisher Island's 13.04. Little Havana's performing better than Fisher Island, which I think is just fitting. And then Miami's Upper East Side 12.9, and then finally Key Biscayne comes in at 11.11. What are your thoughts on that, Jenny? Vintage condos over 30 years old. These are the best markets, which means if you were a seller, you can stand firm and be patient on your price. Where if you're a buyer, these are probably not going to be an area where you're going to get any kind of deal on. What say you, Jenny?
Well, if it depends, yeah, for location,
Yep.
location, quality of some of them,
Yep.
and these particular places, the seller most of the time covers the special assessments that are coming up. So I think that fueling probably transactions on these markets.
Which is a great point. Jenny, is it safe to say when somebody owns a condo and they get told that they're getting a special assessment of $20,000, is it safe to say that they basically have just depreciated by 20 grand? Because they either got to pay the money and or if they sell it, the buyer's going to expect them to pay the money. So a special assessment is actually an announcement that, hey, your property's just gone down in value in terms of your bottom line. Am I getting that right, or you think it's maybe a little bit misleading?
No, I think it's a good point that you make. I just see it that they had to be paid, and yes, you had to deduct it from either the value or the money that you make, the appreciation. Yes.
Okay, and generally speaking, we haven't done a study on this yet. This is all anecdotal. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're hearing, and I'm trying to give you like a rule of thumb. Generally speaking, what we see 3 stories or less in a condo, units are facing about $25,000 a shot. That's what you should anticipate. If it's between 4 and 14 or so, 4 and 13 really, but nobody has a 13th floor here. So call it 4 and 12, okay? You're looking at $50,000 to $75,000 special assessment, and then north of 14 stories, ballpark it at $100,000 a door special assessment. So if you do get hit with a special assessment, you're in a high rise, an old building, if you got to peel, $100,000 off because people hadn't done the story work, or the requirements are harder now. I mean, this is something you need to consider, especially if you're a buyer.
Yes. Right. And we passed an hour.
Yep. And well, I'm on Miami time, so we're just wrapping it up right here. So Jenny, our last point before we shut down this podcast, the worst market for vintage condos, North Bay Village, coming in at 2.8. Again, South Florida average 7.05. Second worst market, Hollywood Hallandale Beach, 4.4. Aventura, 4.45. Bell Harbor, 4.91. And just for kicks, Delray Beach at 5.23. And then we got Sunny Isles at 5.72. Any surprises there other than the fact that most of these communities were built a long time ago? Remember, Florida condo law was created in 1963 or so. Some of the first areas they built, think what was that show? Golden Girls. Like when they opened Golden Girls, have you ever seen the preview? It's late at night, you can't sleep, you put on reruns and you see Golden Girls and they're showing the Miami skyline. That's when a lot of the stuff was built, when condos it was more of like a luxury. You had all these amenities and concierge. Now it's basically just it's a sliver, and I don't even have concierge, terrible service, all that type of. So it's a different world. So a lot of these markets that I just mentioned, they have a lot of vintage units, which are 30 years or more. Do you think that's the right read on it? Simply, these are old, antiquated areas that are likely to get gutted, and many of these buildings torn down and replaced with new stuff?
Yes. And no surprises there on the locations and the sort of product. No.
So Jenny, one thing I want to do with us every Monday when we have this, as we wrap this up, I want you to give me your outlook. Are you a bull? And think of the horns going up. Are you a bear, like you're clawing down, or are you sort of on the sidelines in the middle? What would you say your temperament is right now to the condo market in all of South Florida?
Definitely sideliner.
So you're in the middle.
Yes.
All right. So you think
I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Because the reason why I'm in the middle is because I have clients that are looking for value, so they want to be the bears, and I have some of them that are super wealthy and they would pay more.
Okay. That is Jenny Huertas. She's a broker owner of CVR Realty. CVRRealty.com if you want to look her up. She's been in the business for real estate, done it more than 20 years. Part of that, she was a lender. Got here in 1992. So institutional knowledge becomes very important in a market where it's unpredictable. Somebody maybe just parachuted in, has never seen a downturn or any kind of complexity like we're having today. That is the difference. I mean, there's a real difference between institutional knowledge and somebody who's just sort of catching up with the market. So if you are in the market for either buying or selling, or you just, who knows, maybe you're a realtor and you want to work with a broker who's actually prepared for kind of what's coming. Look up Jenny Huertas, cvrrealty.com. I'm Peter Zalewski. I'm the founder of the Miami Condo Investing Club. If you're interested in joining the club, it's ideal for DIYers as well as realtors. Maybe you want to get a straight talk what's going on in the market. Why do they want to take on a listing if it's never going to sell? It's going to cost them $2,500 out of pocket. You want some kind of straight shooter talking about condos. A lot of people are afraid of condos. This is something I sort of love and deal with. Jenny does as well. So consider joining the club, miamicondo.club. And then finally, if you want to do walking tours, we're rolling out the walking tours. We did one last Saturday. And we're going to be doing our next one of the Brickell Avenue area. We're not going to walk the whole distance, but we'll basically the territory from the river south to the Rickenbacker Causeway. It'll be Interstate 95 east to Biscayne Bay. We'll give you a list of roughly 100 towers, all the condos that exist within this area. We'll also teach you how to analyze the buildings really quickly. Because remember, when you go shopping for a condo, don't shop for units, shop for buildings. Once you find a building, then you sit back and you decide what you're going to take down. But otherwise, you're going to run around and make yourself crazy. So it's the most important to understand a building and see if it is in play and see if maybe there is an opportunity, or maybe you're just wasting your time. And that's kind of where the analysis comes in. So if you like walking, you might have to sweat, and you want to go talk condos and have a good time and laugh, check out the tour. To get information on the tour, go to miamicondo.eventbrite.com or just go to miamicondo.club. miamicondo.club. I'm Peter Zalewski. That's Jenny Huertas. This is Miami Condo Mondays, 4 o'clock Eastern time every Monday. So instead of listening to that boss when you're dozing off, put us on. If you're in the car, turn off that 1980s music. You're younger than that, and we will keep you young with our energy and our information about the South Florida condo market. Take care, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will catch up with you next week. Happy Monday.
See you next week. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.